All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. We're recording late Thursday. We're going to run through the NFL games quickly one last time with any updated thoughts. We'll talk about our best bets for the divisional rounds. We'll talk a wild Australian Open and the movements on the men's and women's side. And then we'll close out with a little NBA chat talking about the Lakers and Warriors, our two grand underachievers in the West. But let's start off with the NFL. Texans-Ravens line has come down a little bit. Ravens -9. It's come down with the total, which is down to 43.5. Looks like there is going to be a lot of wind in Baltimore on Saturday. Have you changed any opinions about this one, Drew?
So my tone on both the dogs on Saturday is softening, more so on Green Bay, which we'll get to in a minute, than Houston. I still think there is definitely scope for Houston to make the Ravens pay along the sidelines down the field, which is where Stroud thrives. Nico Collins is a huge mismatch for that secondary. You know, if you're utilizing him on the perimeter, but the wind is a spooky factor. Certainly, the one weather game we have for CJ Stroud in New York was not good, but there were obviously complicating factors there that aren't necessarily at play here. I would say that the Ravens defense keeping the Texans in a box. The market thinks the Ravens defense is elite and that they're just going to keep the Texans in a box. Maybe. I think there's a chance the Texans can go score an answer here with the Ravens, and to the tune of at least staying inside of double-digit spread. So I haven't bought off my position. I'm still holding Texans plus 9.5. I actually have some Texans money line as well in case things get real weird. But I'm definitely, my confidence is definitely a notch down from when we talked about this game last.
Yeah, Marlon Humphrey being out certainly helps on the Texans side. I think the difficulty is that Stroud in the second half of the season, he just hasn't played that many good defenses. And I understand he beat Cleveland last week, but that Cleveland team was defensively, in terms of its personnel, was significantly diminished from the unit it was in the first half of the season when it looked like one of the great defenses of the past couple of decades. And so the one time that Stroud did play a really good defense at New York, which, as you mentioned, was kind of a disaster. He was 10 of 23 for 91 yards, sacked 4 times, and they didn't score a touchdown. So that is a concern. And at the same time, as we spoke about, this Baltimore team that everyone has anointed as the best team in football, like 2 real games ago, they closed almost touchdown underdogs to another team in the NFL. I just can't buy that they are this absolute juggernaut. And that's why I would still be on the Texans. I just don't think that Stroud should be getting 9 points against any team in the NFL outside of perhaps San Francisco. So that would still be my lean as well. Let's go to Chiefs-Bills. Line here, Bills -2.5. Total is 45.5. This is the Sunday evening game on CBS at 6:30. The Bills injury report has been okay, I guess. Looks like Terrell Dotson should be able to go. Looks like Rasul Douglas will play. It looks like Christian Benford is going to be out. Bernard will be out. Gabe Davis not looking good there. Teron Johnson is in concussion protocol at the moment, but from looking at him in practice, I would guess they're probably going to push him through that and he will play. So it's not quite as dire as it looked like it might be for the Bills defense. But what's your read on this one at 2.5?
Yeah, fortifying my confidence in the Chiefs here. The injury report, as you mentioned, is trending more positively than it could have for the Bills. But honestly, that's just keeping this market from just the trap door from opening on the Bills in the market right now, I think, because there is definitely plenty of positive Chiefs sentiment out there right now. The most kind of in-form unit out of the 4 is the Chiefs defense, in my opinion, healthiest, playing the best football, most consistent football. And I think that sets up pretty well for one sneaky injury that was on the injury report for the Bills that you didn't mention. I think we're starting to get a little bit of an answer as to what happened to Stephon Diggs over the second half of the season. They have him on there as vet, rest, foot. Not so fast, my friend. You rewatched that Pittsburgh game. There were 2 very obvious plays where it's kind of, Diggs got tackled pretty aggressively, got crunched He's pretty clearly either dealing with some sort of abdominal or rib injury, which is why his snap count is down. He's out there less for running snaps, and just in general, less of a contributor. Gabe Davis not likely to go, as far as I could tell you. So all of a sudden, this is now looking like you're going to have to get it done with your tight ends and Shakir, which makes your passing offense look pretty lean against a very, very good coverage unit that the Chiefs are running out there. So starting to feel like the team total on the Bills is too high. And just in general, this is going to come down to Josh Allen being Superman, getting it done on the ground. If this team is going to ultimately, get past the Chiefs, whereas the Chiefs have multiple paths, I think, to be successful on offense against the Bills team with this many injuries. So, starting to feel pretty clearly like the bet of Sunday in the AFC is definitely the Chiefs.
Yep, I like the Chiefs as well. My biggest position in the futures market by far is the Bills. So,
oh boy,
very good. Never had. I can't recall having less confidence in a team that is favored that I'm sitting on a futures ticket for than this Bills team going up against Mahomes. I think the thing with Diggs is that suspect that, like, even though he hasn't looked great, like, he's still putting up these games and getting like 7 receptions for 80 yards. So he's not, a complete mess. It's just that he's not the guy who was talked about as an offensive player of the year candidate in the first month and a bit of the season. So you suspect that he will still be okay enough to at least draw Snead. And I've always enjoyed Khalil Shakir's work. So I'll be counting on him and Kincaid and company and Josh Allen's cape. So, yeah, I agree that the Chiefs are the side there. Packers 49ers. Niners, it's ticked down a touch to Niners minus 9.5. Total is 50.5. This is the Saturday night game on Fox. What's your bullishness like on the Packers?
Yeah, very, very soft.
Good. Need them dead.
I think it's coming. I'm still holding Packers plus 9.5. I got off of my money line position in this one. The injury reports for the Packers is not trending great. It looks like Jair Alexander is going to be a little bit of a long shot to go here, and that definitely matters. The Packers defense, in his absence, even with him on the field, is still coordinated by Joe Barry. I can kind of only imagine how little sleep Kyle Shanahan has gotten this week, not because he's worried about going up against Joe Barry, but he can't stop thinking of ways he's going to make his life miserable on Saturday. This has the potential for the offense for the Niners to get a little bit out of hand. And I think, counting on the Packers to cover is really just going to be score some early, guys. Maybe generate a lead and because or get in the back door. Those are all realistic because 10 is just, it's a huge number. When you have an offense that's performing as well as Green Bay is, and Jordan Love performing, with confidence, and a pass protection unit that I think neutralizes the only real strength of the Niners defense, which is the pass rush. So, there's still enough scope here for, I think, the Packers to make their team total to get inside this number. But kind of where I was, kind of feeling real, there's people are missing. These guys are live. This could be an upset. I've softened on that pretty sincerely since I've kind of digested the matchup advantages for the Niners offense.
Yeah, I bought fully into the Packers, and then I needed them to beat Tommy Cutlets on Monday Night Football, and they got completely eviscerated by Senor Cutlets.
It was a windy game.
Then the following week they gave up a perfect passer rating to Baker Mayfield, and then the week after that they gave up 30 points to Bryce Young in really the only time that he looked like an NFL quarterback all season. So I think the only way that the Packers defense gets to resembling respectability is if the opposing quarterback just self-immolates like Dak Prescott did last week, like Brock Purdy could do this week, but I don't think he's going to. There may be some implosion from Purdy at some point, but I don't think it's going to be prior to the Super Bowl. If he has to go up against the Ravens defense again, or potentially the Chiefs defense, maybe, I think that could potentially trigger the implosion if it's in there, but I can't see it really happening against Green Bay. I think this is going to be a destruction, and the Niners I think it's going to resemble a lot of what San Francisco's offense did in that Philadelphia game, where it's like, how will they not score a touchdown every single time? So I'm fairly bullish on the Niners here. All right, let's go to Bucks Lions, our game on NBC, Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern. The Bucks are 6.5-point underdogs. The total is 48.5. I think you're still bullish on the Lions.
Yep, let's go Lions. Again, like I've said it a dozen times this week on our shows in particular, hand in glove Lions offense against a Todd Bowles schemed defense. That I think is really where this starts and ends. I'm not worried about the Lions coming back and still covering. I'm not worried about them having to, I don't think that this cover is incumbent on them playing with a lead, but boy, oh boy, we haven't really mentioned this, but if they are playing with a lead, if they're handling the blitz well, if their skill position players are really putting a hurting on the single coverage secondary that they're getting, particularly Amon-Ra St. Brown in the slot, Sam Laporta, running over the middle of the field, like this could get ugly quickly, I think. And at that point, Lions putting away with a lead, I can count on Dan Campbell staying aggressive. I can count on the running attack still succeeding even against a good run defense. They've proven that they can do that when they're at full strength on the offensive line. And I think you can count on the Lions defense showing you something, because the one sort of true strength they have is in their front seven with their pass rush. And if it's must pass every down, Baker Mayfield and a pass protection unit that is fading a bit down the stretch here, I think you could see the Lions defense really come up with some chaotic plays to put this one on ice. This is the one game of the week that I think is probably the most mispriced in terms of the real outlier outcome of, like, this could be like a 38-3 type of one-way action. And maybe I'm a little overexcited here about a Lions team that it did play their Super Bowl last week, but I gotta tell you, this is about as good a matchup as they could have drawn for this round of the playoffs, and I think they go through with a little bit of an exclamation point.
Okay, yeah, no, I don't mind the sentiment. Again, the only nervousness would be that the Bucks do have a good run defense, and the game will likely be on Jared Goff's shoulder, which can kind of metaphorically pop out of place occasionally. But I think he showed a fair bit against the Rams last week. Both of our best bets are in this game. We'll get to that in a sec. One other one that is not my best bet that I will throw out is that when these two teams played in week 6, Sam Laporta was targeted 11 times, which is a massive amount. The Bucks have struggled against tight ends. I think back a couple of weeks ago to Juwan Johnson looking like 2009 Antonio Gates. It's just Devin White just isn't very good. And the Bucks, they've been kind of eviscerated by tight ends. So I think that Laporta, I was stunned at how good he looked against the Rams. And he was only 3 for 14. But he looked fully healthy and he played a massive percentage of snaps and just looked physically like he was all the way back. So I guess it was just the injury looked a lot worse than it was, and because I would view him as just being pretty close to 100%. Before we get to the Australian Open, let's talk about these best bets. I'll start with mine, which is Jameson Williams, his over. The number has been floating around between 32.5 to 34.5. I don't understand how this guy is being priced in the market. And I think this is a dream matchup for his kind of player archetype, where the Bucks, what do on defense? Well, they're a very stout run defense. They don't have a very good secondary, and they blitz a ton. And when they blitz a ton against a really good offensive line in Detroit, and they leave, to your point, these corners isolated one-on-one, I think it's going to give the opportunity for big plays down the field. And who's the deep guy on the Lions? It's Jameson Williams. And Jameson Williams, there was some injury concern about him. He played 70% of the snaps against the Rams. His snap count has been ramping up all season. So I think this is 10 yards too low, to be honest. And he's being used more as Amon-Ra is clearly their number 1 guy. I think Jameson Williams will be their number 2 guy in this game, at least on the outside. So I'm taking the over on JMO. What is your best bet?
Yeah, well, I love that one because that could probably cash in the first quarter. That could cash off of one play. We saw Devontae Smith do it to this defense, and you want a good analog for Devontae Smith? It's Jameson Williams. So yeah, I think this could that could be a very fun one. I'm just going to lay it here with the Lions again. I think there is scope for this to be a non-compete, and I don't know. Maybe I'm not maybe I'm missing something about the way the Buccaneers run offense, and maybe they are capable of going score for score for a little while here with the Lions. But I just think there are cracks in that Buccaneers offensive line in terms of pass protection that you saw at home in a very favorable game state against the Eagles. If it's that, if those same cracks appear on second and third down against this Lions team, and Baker Mayfield's taken 20-yard sacks for a loss, 20 yards for a loss sacks, then all of a sudden this game could get out of hand pretty quickly. Add to that the Lions' aggressiveness on fourth down, their ability to kind of look at, you're gonna bring out a Nick, you're gonna take Vita Vea off the field and give us nickel on 3rd and 5 because you think we're gonna pass. Okay, well, we'll just hand it to Jahmyr Gibbs and he's gonna rip off 11 yards here. So like there's definitely no hesitation for them to take advantage of matchups, and that's a lot of what Todd Bowles gives you to work with, because he really just has a one pitch fastball. So Lions laying the points for me, favorite play of the week, and hopeful that maybe the market upgrades him a little too much off of what I'm knocking on wood is a one-way action.
What do you think the line will be if it is as expected? San Francisco home to the Lions. That'd be 7.
Well, in my best case scenario, Niners sneak through without injury and win a close one, and the Lions thump the Bucs, and the market gives us 6.5 on San Francisco. More realistically, 7. If it's 7.5, then I have some soul searching to do next week.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Well, before we get to the Australian Open, a reminder for those of you looking to catch all the storylines leading into Lions at Bucks, including a battle of number 1 overall pick quarterbacks discarded by their original teams. Coverage of the NFC Divisional Round matchup begins at 2 p.m. Eastern this Sunday on NBC and Peacock. All right, Australian Open. I woke up, Drew, to some atrocities where I was not watching these matches. I went to bed and, I saw that Swiatek had pulled it out, which I wasn't happy about. And then I wake up to see that my biggest bet in this tournament by margin, Elena Rybakina, who I believe closed minus 3,000 to win her round 2 matchup against someone, frankly, I don't know anything about.
Sure.
Blinkova, and Rybakina had 6 match points. Now, to be fair, Blinkova had like 11, just a ridiculous, just looked really strange in like the flash score app to see what was going on in this one. But Rybakina goes down, second favorite for the tournament is out. Iga survives. What do you make now of the women's side?
Yeah, all around yesterday was the most entertaining day of slam tennis that we've had in years, or at least as long as I've been paying very close attention. We had 6 matches on the men's side go to a 5th set. 3 of those decided by a tiebreak. And I think we had something like 8 or 9 matches on the women's side go to a decider, including the one you mentioned, Rybakina Blinkova, which was the longest ever tiebreak, decided 22-20 in favor of Blinkova. The Rybakina flame out, I need to dissect that one more carefully because I also slept through the majority of that one, but it looks from the statistical profile like her serve just deserted her in this contest. And that was a little surprising considering how informed she was coming in. But that opens up the door in Q2 to Qinwen. The queen will arrive and potentially make a first ever slam semifinal, I hope. And Iga's, the Iga performance has a really, really important ramifications, because you have a finite amount of kind of what you can give physically in a given fortnight, right? Like if you are playing a match where you have to just leave it all on the court, like she did to get by Danielle Collins this early, like that can take a physical toll. The fatigue can affect you down the line. Like no question about it. Her physical bar is depleted right now. Now she gets a day between matches every step of the way herein. So if she has a couple of shorter contests in the next couple of rounds, maybe this is just a moot point. But almost certainly she's, doesn't look completely physically 100%. And the toll could be impactful. She still has to go through a very tough next couple of rounds. Noskova, Svitolina likely, and then Ostapenko waiting in the quarterfinals, who's her boogeyman. So it is still a long way to go for Iga to win a championship here. I will say, however, the ousting of Rybakina is enormous for her. That's huge. That puts a bunch of win probability right into her bucket. And I will also say that there is a lot of evidence that players who face death the way that Iga was facing death. I mean, literally, like our group of friends we were pricing, well, man, like Daniel Collins, like is her path soft enough? She can make a semifinal again? Like it seemed absolutely over. And she clawed her way back into that one from near death. And again, plenty of examples of players who have taken that experience and fortifies you mentally to where her now belief and her sharpness, her game is going to be A++ mentally, if not physically. So it was a win for her in a lot of ways, but the physical toll is going to be to be determined these next couple rounds. So this next round is probably maybe her most important match of the tournament. She needs to dispatch of Linda Noskova relatively easily, and then she needs to back that up with a clean kill of Svitolina. And at that point, I'm going to believe that she's going to be pretty tough to beat. The bottom half of the draw, which we were kind of commenting on pre-tournament, was pretty soft. Actually shaping up to be pretty tough because Mira Andreeva has arrived, and she put on the most impressive performance so far of this fortnight, dispatching Ons Jabeur 6-love, 6-2. Her game is absolutely superlative. It is made for this court speed. It is made for slam tennis, and she now has a couple of rounds where she's going to be a relatively heavy favorite before running into Sabalenka. So the door is open for Andreeva to really make some noise in this tournament, and I'm excited to see it. Sabalenka's playing fine. Coco Gauff's not playing great, but this is kind of exactly what she did before winning a title in the U.S. Open, so I'm not really worried about that. I think there's still the women's side is just, it's so high quality across the board that they're still just, it's way too early to call. Men's side, same sort of story, man. It's chalk. Like nothing realistically has happened that should change your pre-tournament expectations to this point. The players like Zverev and Medvedev, who were kind of on the fringes of contention, survived some scares. Alcaraz looks in form. Jannik Sinner looks absolutely clinical. Djokovic looks vulnerable. So no real change in my thoughts on the men's side. And between now and when we get to the quarterfinals, it looks pretty similarly chalky as far as I could tell you.
Yeah, men's side. Well, I mean, men's side is often just more predictable given the best of five nature. If Rybakina was playing best of five sets yesterday,
she was 3-2.
Yeah. She probably gets through. I think that Andreeva Sabalenka matchup, should it appear, that will probably be the best match before the semis, I would imagine. All right, let's close out with some NBA. Lakers and Warriors, two neighbors in the Pacific Division, Western Conference rivals coming off their second round matchup last year. Both of these teams scuffling. To me, the Warriors situation seems a lot more dire than the Lakers situation, in that the Lakers still have their two best players playing at an extremely high level in LeBron and AD. They're not the problem. I think everything else has just been – I don't think Ed Darvinham's a very good coach. And I think that just having Reeves and D'Angelo Russell both out of the starting lineup for like a material stretch is just complete insanity. And starting like Vanderbilt and Reddish, and it just – I don't understand what he's trying to do there. It seems like they've righted the ship a little bit. Impressive win over Dallas. Their starting lineup now makes sense, putting both D'Lo and Reeves back in it. And I think this team's ceiling is still a little bit capped, just because I don't think the offense is ever really going to get there. I don't really understand why. I guess it has to be a system thing because they have a lot of offensive talent. It just always looks so clunky and trying to get blood out of a stone for this team to score unless they're getting out in transition. Do you think the Lakers have any ceiling to get back to a Western Conference Finals?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't say that emphatically as it sounded, but they have ceiling because, like, yeah, they're the Lakers and they have LeBron James. And actually, like, one of the kind of spoken things about the Lakers' early season run to the in-season tournament championship was that LeBron James was perfectly healthy. Like the groin injury that really hampered about 2-year stretch of his career doesn't seem to be impacting him whatsoever anymore. And even at this stage in this age, he is capable of finding a level that is very, very tough to match. And in a best of 7, they have the experience and the ceiling to really make some teams miserable. And the other reason I say finals is not out of the realm of possibility for the Lakers is probably going to be a play-in. They're probably going to be a 7 or 8 seed. And right now it looks likely that your 1 or 2 seeds are going to be the Thunder and the Timberwolves. And if you have high confidence that the Thunder and the Timberwolves, with the lack of experience of, how do you navigate a playoff series against LeBron James? Like that's going to be tough. And so I think the Lakers finding another, upset as a 7 or an 8 seed in the first round of the playoffs is in the scope of possibilities. And really the way that the seeding is going to shake out, they could be on the opposite side of the bracket as the Nuggets and the Clippers, which would be huge for the Lakers because I think realistically they're going to need some luck to avoid those 2 teams in particular if they want a hope in getting to the Western Conference Finals. Not really concerned about them if they run into the Suns. Again, like I'm not trying to disparage what the Thunder have done in the regular season. It's quite cool. But a team making their first ever playoff run together, doesn't matter how good your coach is, doesn't matter how deep you are. It's still a different ball game than regular season basketball. So, I'll believe it when I see it that they're going to be the team to beat come playoff time. Similarly with the Timberwolves. Expecting the Lakers are going to make some moves here. It's a team that's a roster that could really use a little bit of fresh blood. And there's more sellers at this trade deadline than I think we thought there might have been at the start of the season. So the Lakers could scoop an asset and we could see a little bit different roster come playoff time. But, I think the swoon post in-season tournament is probably coming to an end. The starting lineup that they're running out there now looks legit. And I think the Lakers are probably going to put together winning basketball here over the middle portion of the season.
Yeah, I think they have the scope to be. It wouldn't shock me if come playoff time, if they are a better team than the Thunder and the Wolves. I think they have 2 issues. One, they're like what? They are 6 games back of the 4 seed. So It seems unrealistic to expect that they're going to crack the top 4. And if they're not cracking the top 4, then they're very likely going to have to play 3 playoff series on the road if they even get to the playoffs, which they would likely going to have to navigate the play-in at this point. And then I think their other issue is that it was looking like there might only be one other juggernaut in the West in Denver. I think there are 2 because I think the Clippers are the real deal where they just some of their combinations. And this is the stuff I always like to look at. And I think was kind of, you could see it coming with the Nuggets last year just because when their best players were all on the floor together, they were putting up the ridiculous like plus 15 net ratings. When Harden, George, and Leonard are all on the court together, and it's just 630 minutes now, the Clippers are a plus 10. And that involves a lot of that early 0-6 start where they just couldn't, they hadn't played together yet and they were completely out of rhythm. So you take that out and it looks a lot better. George and Leonard on, Harden off, plus 26 net rating. Harden and George on, Leonard off, plus 13 net rating. Like they are just destroying everyone. And I think the Nuggets are probably better come playoff time than the Clippers, but I'm not 100% sure. And now the Suns are starting to get it together as well. And if they ever play the Lakers, it's likely that I think Phoenix would have home court in that series. So it's just going to be tough sledding. And they would also, the Lakers, they would be dogs by market if they have to go at Minnesota or at OKC, you would expect, just given they don't have home court. So I I think that this team is probably going to end up with like 44, 45 wins, and they're going to be dangerous, and they might be able to win a round or two. But the idea that they're going to get back to the finals when I think the Nuggets and Clippers are both clearly better than them, and I think the Suns are probably better than them as well. Not to mention the two teams that are likely to be the top two seeds in the conference, or at least right there. It's a lot of uphill skiing for the Lakers. But they're in a much better position than the Warriors, who are 18 and 22. Obviously, a tragedy experienced by the organization. So their game against Dallas on Friday has been postponed after their game against Utah was postponed. On the court, they are now 12th in the West. Their over-under is set at 40.5. I mean, at one point after they got off to a decent start, I think that was 50.5. They have been just a mess. And to me, everyone's focusing on, Wiggins and the Kuminga drama and Chris Paul fitting, not fitting, now being injured. To me, the biggest problem with this team is that, talking about those like lineup combinations in like the championship years and even a couple of years ago, the Curry, Thompson, Draymond trio, when they're on the court, like that was frequently around like a plus 10, plus 15, up to plus 18, I think. This year, and it's not a massive amount of minutes, it's 291 minutes, they're a -4 net rating when those three guys are on the court, and there's no three-point shooting luck. They're actually shooting better than opponents from three when that combination is on the floor. And I think their issue is just that Curry's still excellent. Curry's still a first, second team All-NBA guy, but he's not the all-world MVP he was. And then Thompson and Green just aren't the same players anymore. And then if they're not the same players, then the team just isn't very good.
I could not agree with you more. The two best three-man combinations for the Warriors right now are Paul, Pods, and Saric. Kuminga, Paul, and Thompson. There's no answers here. Like this is rough, man, and it's tough to kind of be this down on them in this moment where they're dealing with tragedy. But like, I do not envy the Mike Dunleavy Jr. tenure here of figuring out what to do to salvage the end of the Curry experience, because Curry pretty clearly still has all NBA level. Maybe it's not first team anymore. Maybe it's not even second team, but he's still in the conversation of the top 6 guards playing. And if you have a guy of that caliber and you have other players around him that have shown you a history of elevating the team performance, then you shouldn't be in this situation, but they very much are. I really just don't see any answers. I've banged my head against the wall in December. I was like, man, maybe if they just did this and this. They've tried it. It hasn't worked. There are enough kind of problems on this roster, and kind of asking too much of guys who just cannot deliver at a given level to expect that this is going to pivot on the fly. Sad to see it, but I think at some point you have to move Wiggins. That's probably addition by subtraction. So if you get someone back who can contribute, that's good. But his deterioration in quality of play has been very, very tough to wrap your head around. And yeah, I mean, I don't really know what they do to position themselves for being competitive in the future, because all of a sudden you do have still some teams that you mentioned in the West who are problems to deal with in a playoff series. And oh, by the way, here come the new young teams. And so the idea that there's a quick turnaround and one more competitive run for these guys, I think is probably unlikely. And the championship that they got 2 years ago, it was lucky, and it may have been ultimately like a perfect way to kind of put a bow on that era of Warriors championship contention.
Yeah. It just doesn't seem like there's any way out, because Thompson and Wiggins and Draymond have such massive contracts that are underwater, and they're not going to be able to move them for upgrades. So, like, what do? You can't just snap your hands and get better players. Like, you have to move these salaries. I don't think anyone's going to want them. And like the Warriors came in, the idea was that they could win the title this year. I'm not sure that they're better than like Utah right now in their current construction, the way that like Sexton seems to be playing at the moment. Like, a Clay and Draymond better than Sexton and Walker Kessler right now, like, let alone I mean, it's not very good for the Warriors. They are going to face an uphill battle to make the playoffs. I just don't know what you do, though, because Curry's still really, really good. And Clay and Draymond are still going to be out there. So I guess they just kind of scratch and claw to get into the play-in. And then you hope that Curry, Magic, and Wiggins further removed from, his time away last season, that he can flick the switch and just get better again. And then hopefully, you're in the playoffs and then you probably get destroyed in round one. Like, that seems like the upside for this team right now.
Yeah, that's not good. The Wiggins, I mean, honestly, like, you don't understand it. I mean, he's 28. Like, he's been around a lot. He's played a lot of minutes, but going from, a positive player, a slightly below positive last year to now a -6 box plus minus is crazy. Like, that is a level of drop off that you just don't really see very often. So maybe it is small sample and he can bounce back a little bit and play a little bit better. But, pretty clearly this, the idea that they're going to contend against a field that all of a sudden is like light years tougher than it was 2 years ago. I just am not seeing it.
I mean, Wiggins is 28 and we're only 2 years removed from him being the second best player in an NBA finals. It's completely insane that this happened, and it's not just his shot abandoning him, just defensively. I mean, he just annihilated Jason Tatum in that finals, and I don't think Jason Tatum was right physically in that finals, but all the same, like, Wiggins absolutely put the clamps on, and now all of a sudden you just don't feel him when he plays, and you forget that he's out there, and he just doesn't really. And he's the guy that he's the guy that he was at the end of his Minnesota tenure, where you just don't. He just doesn't really make an impact outside of a negative one at the moment. Last one on the Warriors, 2 years ago when they won the title, when Curry was on the court, they were +11. Last year, where they scuffled, but was still, a clear playoff team, Curry was +6, or the Warriors were +6 when Curry was on the court. This year, they're -3 with Curry on the court. And the idea that you can be a -3 with Stephen Curry on the court just shows how dire things are at the moment for the Warriors. All right, we are done. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. And also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, good luck this weekend, and we'll see you next week.